The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, and on today's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by Marshall Scott here, clearly in person if you're watching this, however you are, or listening to it. And we want to talk a little bit about Oklahoma State's national championship, men's golf, a little bit about the baseball season and the just unfortunate end. Seems like that happens every so often for Oklahoma State sports fandom. And then do a top five, or I guess best Oklahoma State player kind of draft in basketball, but maybe make a lineup out of it as well too. We're going to do guards, forward, centers, all fun deal, but just since 2000. So sorry, not bringing up a bunch of guys, Bob Curlin and others, but we're just going since 2000, past 25 years. Since I'm 31, at least I know I could speak on that. Before then, memory's a little fuzzy. So
quarter century, all the rage these days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone's doing it. So might as well be us too. Well, first want to ask you about men's golf. It's actually, wildly enough, in Carlsbad, California, not too far from where I born and lived. They won the national championship, but did anyone else see this coming? Were we huge favorites? Were we not favorites? Were you just amped up when we won? What were you thinking?
Yeah, definitely. So it looked like they were on the right trajectory sort of going into the year. I think, and I don't keep up with golf a ton, but it was a young team. They win the national championship with 4 sophomores and a freshman. So I think that, probably it was maybe more realistic to think, okay, this team next year or the year after that, that's whenever this team is really going to compete. But then I think they won maybe 2 or 3 tournaments going into, sort of postseason. They win the Big 12. Preston Stout, wins the second individual title in 2 tries in the Big 12. And so, they just got hot, stayed hot, found a way into match play and then found a way to win. I think, match play has costed Oklahoma State some. I think back to that 2019 team. I think Oklahoma State finished the stroke play portion of 2019 minus 15, and the second place was Vanderbilt at plus 16. So it was huge gap, but then they fall in the match play portion, so it doesn't really matter. So they've been on the raw end of that, and then this year they get the benefits of the match play format. So I think it was a little surprising, maybe just because of how young they were, but I think that the building blocks were there sort of all along with how good this team could be.
But who was the favorite? Because we win Bedlam, as well, and we also win. It seemed like to me all of a sudden, hey, we're winning the national championship in golf. Whereas going into the season, like you said, 4 sophomores, you didn't really think it was going to happen. But then guys are, seeing other Oklahoma State guys get super excited about it and go oh my gosh, he's just blossoming in front of our eyes, making incredible putts, stuff. But putt to win the Bedlam match, but also the championship, or I guess semifinal match, to go to the championship was kind of crazy as well. Going against OU.
Yeah, I think they'd gotten up to 3 or 2 nationally. So I don't think it was, by the time that the national championship was actually happened, a total surprise. But they finished the stroke play portion in 4th at -1. Arizona State was -14. So yeah, I think it was a pretty close field, all things considered, the other day. And then you mentioned getting Bedlam round 1. That's super exciting. Ole Miss actually, they were the 8, so they upset the 1 to get to play Oklahoma State. And obviously that match was crazy exciting. And then, capping off a national championship was much more exciting than that. So I think the field was reasonably close going into the year, or going into this tournament. And then, like I said, I think, Oklahoma State was right there among the favorites heading in. But I think if you broaden the view and go back to the beginning of the year, I'm not sure that many Oklahoma State fans would have picked, this team to go win a national title as early as they did.
Well, it sounds like we're in a great position for next year.
Yep.
I can't wait for that, of course. Then with baseball, I'm already kind of chomping at the bit for next year. Excited. We've got guys returning, but wanted to ask you towards the end of the season. Rob Walton announces he's going to retire before postseason is made. Long career legacy, if you want to touch on, Rob Walton's legacy with Oklahoma State, but also just ask you how you think the end of the season went. It was kind of how we expected.
Yeah, I think the end of the season was promising just because of, how rough the early portions of that season were. That they're able to get together, they're able to make the tournament. That was sort of a, going in, even into the Big 12 tournament, that was sort of a question as to whether, this team's going to make the field. They go get that big win over Georgia, which I think is just sort of a moment that Oklahoma State fans will cling to for a little bit. So I think that was cool. Rob Walton retiring. Any pitcher I've talked to, I've covered. I jumped on the baseball beat my freshman year of college, so that's 2015. So I've been covering OSU baseball about 10 years now. In every pitcher that I talk to cannot speak more glowingly about Rob Walton. I know that he takes it on the shin sometimes on social media. I think that's just sort of part of the job. I think it's sort of akin to the offensive coordinator, where you're a fan, you don't really know what's going wrong. Just it's got to be the offensive coordinator. So, I think maybe there's a little bit of that, and then on top of that, it's like if the offensive coordinator, the whole college kickers meme, whenever a guy misses a kick, college kickers, the thing being consistent. I think maybe similarly, college pitchers, you hope they hit their spot all the time, but in reality, they're college kids. So, I think there's a little bit of that with a pitching coach, just in general. But yeah, like I said, anybody that I've ever talked to about Rob Walton cannot speak more glowingly about him. What I'm going to miss personally is no matter where the ballpark, whenever he's coming out for a mound visit, he does not break stride and he does not step on the line. It's one of the most impressive things ever. I saw it in LAP. I was interested to see, does he still got this whenever, we moved to Obrate. Yeah. And still, the steps have got to be a little bit different, but just smooth as can be, smooth like butter, doesn't step on the line. It's one of the more remarkable things that I can remember. But jokes aside, I think everybody's been within the program, been a big Rob Walton fan for a while.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, my time working for Oklahoma State athletics, as a student and stuff, there was always it's got to be this coach, it's got to be this. But to your point, it's always, if the Oklahoma State's football team is allowing 50 points, must be the defensive coordinator. By the end of last season, I don't think anyone was really just that mad about the defensive coordinator. More like, hey, we couldn't score a point against Colorado. What's going on? And there's just so many different factors. But as you said, there's not like the hitting coach's name for Oklahoma State baseball is not a name that's well known throughout the community. In fact, I ask you off the top of your head, do you know who it is? But it's just to my point, right? We all know who Rob Walton is because the pitcher's the guy who's allowing the runs. We know that the goalie in soccer is because he's allowing the goals. We may not know the guy who's, got 3 or 6 home runs in the season, but if he hits a crazy good home run, we'll know his name then. But you know it when they do really good, but you definitely know when they're doing bad. And Rob Walton's legacy of just Big 12 championship after Big 12 championship appearance, I'm happy they're changing a little bit from Globe Life down, moving to a little bit smaller of a stadium at least. Where
that was rough.
Yeah, we'll see how that works and see if maybe I can make a road trip out there to see Oklahoma State play sometime. But it sounds like a little bit better deal overall in Arizona. But besides the point there, Walt had some quirks, but one of the coolest quirks ever is, like you said, just didn't break stride, didn't step on the line. You see the MLB guys do that all the time, where they're trying to jump it or whatever. And he's just such a well-known guy. And if head coach of Oklahoma State baseball likes the pitching coach, keep him. Yeah. If he's saying glowing reviews about him, I'm glad he's with us. Mm-hmm. If he's saying he's fine, or he's okay. And from time to time, hearing out their college press conferences, they're not always just glowingly, basically about the pitching coaches. And then maybe it's okay, maybe somebody else is the reason why he's here. Maybe it's a contract deal, but with him, it definitely wasn't. All right. Well, for too long, of course, I want to ask you here, I'll let you go first with this kind of draft here of kind of, still in the Barstool Sports ideas, drafts, or whoever came up with it. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about basically since 2000. So Desmond Mason doesn't make it, unfortunately, there.
I think he might have played in 2000, but he's not on my list.
I'm saying that's kind of the line, okay. Because I'm not trying to bring in John Starks and others because, hey, I've been roasted lately on social media for the stuff I don't know and haven't been alive for. So I want to say the stuff I was alive for and haven't alive for here. So I'll let you go first here. Board's open. You can choose whatever position, but I have a feeling I might know where you go just because of the lack of depth at the spot. But who's your first number one?
I'm going to Cade Cunningham because he's the best player that when I say it's had. I don't think that's tough to say, especially with the year. It's further proving correct. On the NBA stage. So not too much to say other than Cade Cunningham number one. It was if I got the number one pick, that was simple.
Goes number one overall in the draft.
Yeah.
Goes number one overall in our draft. Probably should. It does make a lot of sense there. I would definitely understand that for sure. On that same point here, I think I'm going to also go guard first year. And I got to take the most recent guy who dropped top 10 pick, Marcus Smart. I mean, stayed 2 years for Oklahoma State. This is not like, hey, how long did they take or whatever. This is just best guy to take. I mean, if they couldn't take Gerald Greenson or play for Oklahoma State, but he committed, But yeah, I think I got to take Marcus Smart overall. Just the hustle guy, defensive stats, all defensive player of the year in the NBA. And then sadly didn't win a championship with Boston. They traded him away the season before, but basically on championship contending teams. And I want to say he played in the finals in 2022, excuse me. So not too long ago, which seems weird. His career had already slid multiple teams since then, just in a quick 5-year span. But the one other thing is Smart and I were both freshmen the same year in 2012. So I'm like, man, he's only 31. He's already, kind of sliding a little bit. But when you're defensive player of the year as a guard, you're definitely taking the bruises and hits. And yeah, I got to put Smart there if I can't choose Cade, which I totally get the pick there.
Yeah, I think one and two were fairly, elementary to a certain extent. For my second pick, I'm taking this A because he's a good player, and B because I can't leave up too much defense. Grandfather Tony Allen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Off the board. So, yeah, it's a somewhat similar career really to Marcus Smart. When you talk about defense, obviously he was on the Final Four team back in 2004. So, another one that sort of speaks for itself. I'm sure Cade can play well with just about anybody, as he maybe proved during his long season here. So I certainly think that Tony Allen will fit in alongside Cade rather swimmingly.
Yeah, choosing Smart there. And then after that, I think because I have so much defense, I got to go with the other guy who could shoot a bunch of threes, who's smaller guard, but what isn't full forte? I guess I'm going to go Keaton Page, Bonnie Pistol. I mean, a little bit off the board. I understand there's probably some other guys that I could have slid up here a little bit. I'm curious if you're going to take Jawun Evans at some point, just because the forward depth is a little bit less. But if Jawun Evans is there later, maybe I'll take him. Who knows? But yeah, I think I just got to take Bonnie Pistol and get some 3-point percentage up, get the all-time Oklahoma State free throw percentage.
Yep.
Keaton Page there. So I got to take Keaton there with the second pick of guard.
The solid pick. I thought about, okay, if it came down to it, who am I taking, Keaton or Phil? I think Phil is the all-time leading three-pointer, but I think he got that in his fifth year because he got injured that junior year. So a little bit of an asterisk, but then if he played that whole junior year, he probably I don't know.
And then this is all just for fun, too. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, how would they play if it was these two guys versus these two guys? We've seen Forte and Smart play before. So I'm like, all right, you know what? How would it be with Keaton Page? I'll also Oklahoma State assistant coach right now, Keaton Page. So, not the West Virginia assistant coach, Phil Forte. So props to both, coaching Big 12. But I'm going to take Page.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit of size. I do have, Jawun on my radar, we'll say. I'm not going to spoil whether he's in my top 5 or not, but I'm going to go Joey Graham.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of size. Obviously another, stalwart in his time at Stillwater. You can't pick enough of these guys who are on a Final Four team. You surely, probably can't do that. So, Joey Graham, give me a little bit of size. Again, we'll fit in great alongside Cade. Already know that he fits in great with Tony Allen. So that's my third pick is Joey Graham.
All right. Well, I see you going size a little bit, so I'm also going to match size from that same team, but I'm going to go Ivan McFarland. I mean, Oklahoma State just 6'8", kind of power forward, center. Might end up playing him in center, but I don't know how this all shakes out here. But yeah, I mean, hard not to choose Ivan McFarland. Oklahoma State great, Final Four. I mean, Big 12 champion. Yeah, there's just so many great things to say about that team overall. So yeah, I'm going to definitely take, as I would say, IMAC, but definitely Ivan McFarland. I'm not sure that's a nickname known outside of fourth grade Calvin, but by the way, but fourth grade Calvin was saying IMAC a lot on the sideline.
Surely they called him IMAC.
We both think so.
A little too young back then, but surely that was. Okay, I'm a little stuck with my last two picks. I am going to take Jawun Evans.
All right.
I'm a little, stylistically, how does this hypothetical team fit together? Whenever Jawun and Cade, both pretty ball dominant dudes, but watching Jawun his 2 years at Stillwater, it was so much fun. He'd get to the basket somehow and throw it high off the glass, and how did that go in? I've got no idea. I really wish that he would have stuck around for that first Boynton team. That was the year that he went to the draft after his sophomore year. Then Boynton comes in. I don't blame him for leaving, considering he played 1 year under Ford, another year under Underwood, and then it's like now you want me to come play another year under somebody else. So I don't blame his decision there, especially within the NIL world. But man, I wish he was on that first Mike Boynton team alongside Jeffrey Carroll. And you maybe wonder, do they get Kendall Smith if they already have Jawun Evans? I don't know. Kendall Smith was awesome in his one season, but I think I'd take Jawun Evans being there anyway. So I'm a little worried how it's going to fit in terms of Cade and Jawun sharing the ball. But Cade's 6'7", 6'8", so I can afford to take another smaller guy. So give me Jawun.
Yeah, the Cade pick really helps you out overall, just with a bunch of other defensive matchups possibly down the line. Cade's size is just incredible. I mean, what is he, 6'6", 6'8", somewhere in there? I mean, and also, I mean, the guy's just a linebacker type of wide shoulder, so he can guard probably well above his height too. With that, I think at this point, I'm gonna stay with the big here, and I'm gonna take the guy known as For the Die. Take Mitchell Solomon, 4-star guy or 3-star guy, depending where you're looking exactly on the recruiting boards. But Oklahoma State's saying 4, and I'm saying 4, of course, as well too. Mitchell Solomon, known for sweeping KU in his season in 2018, our senior year, and then of course diving on the court and winning Bedlam against Trae Young and OU. Should have gone to the tournament that year, of course, in my estimation. I think every other Oklahoma State fan.
Dick Vitale, so.
Oh yeah, which is what matters today. Is the non-biased Vitale. He's not biased for OU or Oklahoma State, but that's a team where, later on he ends up playing with Cam McGriff and Lindy Waters and Kendall Smith and others too. So it's just one of those where, man, Solomon's career was just amazing to watch all throughout. He comes in freshman year, is averaging under 2 points a game, and then by the end of it, it's like second All-American. So in the Big 12. So got to take Mitchell Solomon, and I think a lot of people might be a little bit scratching their heads, but it's Ryer's off the board. This is after 2000. So we got to stick with what we got here in these parameters and do the quarter century.
Yeah. People often ask me, given my job, like, what was your favorite sporting event to be at? And a sneaky one is that Bedlam game where Sullivan dove on the floor, just because, that game really had everything. It was full-fledged GIA. It was like maybe one of the last times that had happened.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Obviously, you had star power on the other end, Trae Young, somebody for OU fans to get behind, somebody for the national fans to watch, and then somebody for Oklahoma State fans to like heavily. So yeah, that was awesome. Obviously the dive on the floor, and then I'm sitting, that was back whenever the media was courtside. So I'm like sitting right in front of the student section, and then whenever the band started to storm the court, you sort of put your laptop in your lap because there's beat coming past you. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, that was an awesome time. Mitchell Solomon is a fan favorite, though. Can't disagree with that pick at all. Which brings me to my pick number 5. And like you said, we need some bigs. I definitely need a big guy. I think I don't know that he's one of the top. I'm fairly certain he's not one of the top 10 players since 2000. But I think he fits with my team very well, and mainly because I want to see what a Cade oop to this person would look like. But it's Moussa Cisse. They missed each other by a year. They're in the same recruiting class. Moussa went to Memphis right out of college. Cade comes here, and then Cade goes to the NBA. Moussa comes here, but watching that would have just been immaculate. So, and then on top of that, I've got Jawun Evans. I'm a little worried about my 3-point shooting. We're going to be a bully ball team, I'm afraid. But yeah, but between Cade and Jawun Evans, they can figure that part out, and then we'll just get every rebound and throw a bunch of lobs. So, Moussa Cisse is going to be my center. Like I said, I'm not sure that he's the best among the best centers, maybe even since 2000. Shout out like Michael Cobbins, but and plenty of others for that. But I think that's where I'm leaning is Moussa Cisse, just to watch him and Cade sort of interact with each other on basketball.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest Oklahoma State what-ifs is if the NCAA sanctions are not ending over that Cade year, then does Moussa Cisse end up? He was getting recruited by Oklahoma State heavily, so was Bryce. Multiple 5-star guys there that could have all come to Oklahoma State with Cade, and who knows what could have happened, because that team already was a 4th seed in NCAA March Madness, and then just ended up listening to the weirdest team ever in Oregon State. But that's a story for another day. I think with my 5th spot here, I really just I have 2 bigs, I've got 2 guards. I'm lacking a guy here to match up against Cade, no matter what, and it's really going to be tough to find. Yeah. But you mentioned a bunch of alley-oops. I got to take Markel Brown. I mean, known for just the Sports Center dunk, I think that almost put the lights out in GIA. High flyer, ends up basically just making, the highlight that he had against Missouri is just insane. That dunk against Missouri. I loved watching him, and Markel Brown is just one of those guys where he's like a 360 dunk. He gets shouted out by former Oklahoma State guys as well, too. So, he's kind of one of those that's maybe more loved than you would think. James Anderson, quality kind of guy here I was thinking about as well, too. But And Anderson's drafted in the first round of the NBA, so he's definitely a really, really good guy to choose. But I just have more of a connection to watching Markel Brown play, being here in Stillwater, watching him play a little bit. For some of the games before I was a student, of course. But yeah, just an incredible player overall. Yeah, so I think you're going Markel.
Not a ton of people are comfortable whipping out a 360 in a game. I'd imagine because for at least a little bit, you're not looking at, the goal that you're dunking on. I remember I like to ask players whenever they have a big dunk, like, how do you decide what dunk you're going to do? Because, everything's moving pretty quick. So I remember asking Cam McGriff about it after one of Cam's crazy dunks. I don't remember which one. And Cam just said, well, what do you want me to do? That's what he told me afterwards. And I was like, I think 360 would be pretty cool because whenever I think of Oklahoma State dunking, I think of, Markel Brown doing 360. So I don't know that I Cam capable of doing a 360. I don't know that he ever whipped it out, but yeah, that's sort of just one of my favorite things to ask guys after they throw down some crazy dunk is like, hey, in the midst of all this chaos that's happening, how do you, okay, this is what I'm going to do here. So how he just decided at all times I'm going to spin while I'm jumping, I have no idea. But yeah, Markel Brown, awesome. Then you mentioned James Anderson, awesome. John Lucas, probably a guy that deserves on one of these teams somehow. But we're both a little on the younger end of Oklahoma State. In Spain terms, obviously, it's the shot to send Final Four. But I'm going to pick Jawun Evans because I'm a little bit younger than that generation. So I think that's a solid pick. I think we've got two pretty good teams.
Yeah, for sure. And there's plenty of before 2000, Randy Rutherford, of course, some left-handed, so left-handed 6'4" guard, attractiveness as well there. But yeah, it doesn't make the criteria here. And then there's other ones, of course, Bryant, right? Just like I can't, be amiss not mention space of the guys. But since 2000, that's where kind of the depth certain positions where I'm putting down Yorane and others here too, where I'm like, man, some of these guys that transfer away just stayed in Stillwater a little bit longer. I mean, the most famous one of recent memories, like Rondell Walker, like what would he have been doing for Oklahoma State these past couple of years? Would he have been seeing a lot of time? Maybe not. I mean, guys make decisions on their own for their own good reasons, I'm sure. But there's a couple of guys from like, what, if that one Cade year, Cade wasn't coming back for a second year. It's crazy Marcus Smart did, honestly. So what was going to happen? What could have happened that 1 year? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But it's COVID. But the year that we beat Texas Tech with Cade Cunningham. If Kyle Greiba had been able to be full, COVID had not been happening.
Beat Kansas that year.
Yeah.
At the end of that Kansas game, Cade gets the block to save. I think Rondell Walker ends up playing it up on the other end. That was electric, just being there with the arena half full and, nobody's even on the floor. I could only imagine what that would have looked like had, Oklahoma State been able to go watch the number one pick that was playing for them. So, yeah, that was.
Yeah, and now we're seeing him really put it to, he almost took the whole Pistons team to basically 7 games against the Knicks earlier this year, so in the playoffs. So it's just wild to deal overall. Well, while I have here, I have a couple extra ones. Do you want to ask you a little bit of Thunder, fun stuff? Who's your like most obscure favorite Thunder player? Like if it's not Russ, if it's not James Harden, not Shea, and go as least obscure or kind of more obscure as you want to say, but maybe a guy who didn't win an MVP.
Okay. Well, let's start very obscure. I don't know if you'll remember this name, Robert Swit. No, it was sort of a sad end to the tale, but he was a big dude. He had red hair, and as a little kid, I was just like, "What was this?" I don't know, with red hair. I think he had a lot of personal demons that ended up, getting him out of the league. But he was like, whenever they first came over, it was sort of one of my first favorite players, and I love falling in love with the Presti Project guys. Poku, I love Poku. I love Alexi Poku. Ujwa Zhang, it's similar vein where, we've got this sick bait guy who can sort of do everything. Hopefully he develops into it. So that's where I am right now. Even on this current team, because I don't like to be, I like to be a little bit different. So every favorite player on this current team is SGA. I'm sort of battling back and forth. Is it J-Dub, which is, everybody's second favorite player probably on the team. But, I like barking. I like doing the hand of 3 thing. But yeah, I often just try to be cool or what, don't like the most popular player on the team. I pick somebody in the peripheral. So I think I've got a lot of that, as evident by, Robert Swift being mentioned on this podcast.
Yeah, I think I got to take mine of like Oklahoma State, like all time Thunder guys. It's like Alex Freitas, which have the exact same birthday down to the year and date. So like August 1st, 93, it's just a crazy deal. And number 8, which I don't know if it's because his favorite month of the year is his birthday or not. That's why my number would be number 8. And then I want to say, it's Kobe, but not really. I'm just more egotistical than that. But I think that's a really good one. Dang, NBA G League MVP, where the NBA was shouting out Isaiah Hartenstein, and there's one guy for the Pacers, I can't remember exactly who, he's also G League MVP, but also Jane. I mean, it's just crazy. It's also a weird deal where he's drafted one spot before J-Dub, where you're like, wait, what's going on here? Why would he be? But then, because the Thunder didn't own the picks, they were worried if it ever got rescinded, then we definitely would have Jalen Williams because Presti was that high on him, which so how smart he is. I think it's got to be, but Poku, it's got to be the guy where it's like 17 pick, out of the lottery, has the funniest video ever where they cut to him and his whole family sitting around a table, like they're all just so polite, so serious. So, all right, sounds great, sounds good. And then you see him play and you're like, some of these mistakes you're making are not like the worst mistake ever at all, but they're definitely like goofy mistakes. And they're not like, oh, I'm this like locked in serious player. It's like, maybe behind the back pass while jumping in the air will work. And
he tried it.
It went up. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah. One of the last, because I don't go to a lot of games. One of the last games I did go to, in mind, it was when Poku was still on the team, was I'm getting a Pokuševski jersey today. Go to the team store. Turns out no Pokuševski jerseys. So I ended up getting Lindy Waters, and then I think it was either the next day or maybe 2 days after he got traded or released or whatever. So it's like, oh dang, that was my Poku shot right there. So did he maybe just, should he be on the Thunder right now? No, but I believed from the moment he was drafted until the moment they released him that potential would prove true at some point. And I think he's playing pretty well overseas back in Europe right now. So shout out to Poku.
They're making some championship league or wherever last update I heard is, and I don't know how many minutes he's playing, but I think with the European league, sometimes playing 20, sometimes playing 6, sometimes playing 10. I just never know. The guy for me that I always think about with the Thunder is Josh Eustace, who's drafted like just in the first round, but kind of weirdly because Thunder basically moved up to take him in the first round because they had to, because they had the first round pick. They couldn't draft him in the second round. They're trying to move back to have a non-guaranteed roster spot. That's with Cade and Russ and all them. But I got to interview Eustace after an OKC Blue game when I was writing for a website back in the day. And that was one of those where he was so well-spoken, had such a good all-around game. And I was like, yeah, you could definitely back up KD. No one's KD, but you could at least like fill a role here and play 10 minutes a night or something. And just the fact he never looked out of the league, like, oh man, like when the Spurs pick him up, all right, probably know what they're doing. Seems like we missed a guy, could have been, but it ends up not. And of course the Mitch McGary highlights, there's Mitch McGary day, it's like, oh man, what could have been there too. But it's a Thunder on their, hopefully, knock on wood here, no jinx allowed, way to an NBA championship. We'll see.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've because maybe it's because cover Oklahoma State and I'm so into the day to day that I maybe don't ride the ups and downs as much as I would have whenever I was in high school or something like that. But this Thunder team is like the first time in a while that I've like let myself feel. I'm gonna the end of game 1, I yelled really loud. My cat got scared and ran away. My wife was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me a second. I need to punch a hole in the wall." Didn't do that, but it would have felt good. This is like the first time in a while that I've like really emotionally invested into a team, and hopefully I'm willing to ride it out no matter what way this finals ends, but hopefully it ends well.
Yeah, I would think so as well too. It seemed a little weird to me that people are picking Thunder maybe sweep or Thunder in 5, and it's like this is the NBA Finals, it just never goes like that. But 5, all right, 5 is still a possibility, of course. Just win the next 3 straight and recording this. On Tuesday, right after the Sunday of game 2. So we'll see. Wednesday will come quick. I'll probably put this one out here after that game, so I don't want to necessarily jinx it before then. But Marshall, as always, thanks so much for joining here on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, follow us at CGA Tour on Twitter, Instagram. I should be saying X at this point, but I never do. Always kind of forget here, but Threads, Blue Sky, wherever you listen to the podcast, and we'll catch you guys again soon.
Thanks.